At this time, we'll call the Yukon City Council meeting to order for October the 18th, 2011. Pardon me?
There you go.
Okay. At this time, we'll call the October 18th City Council, Yukon City Council meeting to order. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, thank you. We will start with the invocation. Teresa Sanders, Director of Compassionate Hands, with the invocation, and then if you would stand and remain standing for the flag salute. I'll pray. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us here this evening so that we might share our ideas and thoughts with one another about our great community, Lord. Given this opportunity, allow us to listen to one another and make decisions that will serve our community's best interests, Lord. Let us do your work. Let your will be done. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Alberts.
Here.
Gerba.
Here.
Bradway.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Maxey.
Here.
At this time, we have a proclamation. If the representative from Head Start would come down front. All right, here we go. Do you want to read it? No. Okay. Proclamation. Whereas Head Start is a comprehensive family-oriented child development program for low-income families, and whereas since the establishment of Head Start on May the 18th, 1965, Head Start has provided a comprehensive health, education, nutrition, and social service to more than 8 million preschool children and their families. Whereas major research funding document the program's lasting positive effects on children. And whereas October has been designated as Head Start Awareness Month, and the Yukon Head Start will join more than 32,000 Head Start classrooms across the country in celebrating the accomplishments of Head Start. Whereas the support of this community has been made possible by the local Head Start program. Now, therefore, I, John Alberts, Mayor of the City of Yukon, do hereby declare the month of October 2012 to be Head Start Month in the City of Yukon, given under my hand and seal this day, October the 18th, 2011. Congratulations. Thank you. And will you introduce yourselves and give us a little information about Head Start, please?
My name is Emmeline Pohlmeyer. This is Jennifer Homer. I'm one of the teachers out at Head Start. We're no longer at 950 Poplar. We are out at the Peanut Butter and Jelly Daycare. We have 2 spaces out there, and we now have 1 space in Mustang that we have a Head Start in. Yukon has always had many children here. A lot of people tell me, oh, there are no, low-income families in Yukon. Well, we serve a lot of children. We have a big waiting list. We could probably use another Head Start classroom in Yukon. We're waiting our 2 buildings to be moved out to Peanut Butter and Jelly. Gwen Messicap, the owner of the Peanut Butter and Jelly, very graciously gave us 2 spaces out there, and we're going to eventually get our 2 buildings moved out there so that we can have our own space. But we're very grateful for her. And we're grateful for the people of Yukon for supporting Head Start over the years. We depend upon a lot of help. We do Christmas programs for our children. We try to help their families when they need something, and we depend upon a lot of the churches and a lot of our friends and families in Yukon to help us out. So if you're ever interested in helping out at Head Start, please give us a call out there and let us know what you would like to do to help us help the families. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is the visitor section of our agenda tonight, and this is the opportunity for anyone that is here tonight to address the council regarding a non-agenda item. So if there's an item appearing on the agenda, you'll have an opportunity to speak about it later. But if there is something on your mind that you would like to discuss with the council, if you would come forward to the podium and state your name and your business at this time. We've got a packed house and no one wants to talk. I think maybe later. At this time, we'll recess as the Yukon City Council and reconvene as the Yukon Municipal Authority. Item 1A is the YMA consent docket. This item is placed on the agenda so the Yukon Municipal Authority, by unanimous consent, can designate those routine items they wish to be approved by one motion. If an item does not meet with the approval of all authority members, that item will be heard in regular order. The city manager recommends a motion to approve A, the minutes of the regular meeting of October the 4th, 2011, and B, the payment of material claims in the amount of $472,997.95. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Smith.
Yes.
Gerba.
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes.
Maxey.
Yes.
Bradley.
Yes.
The next item is 2A, consider and approve resolution number YMA 2011-2, a resolution authorizing the issuance of the Yukon YMA 2001 revenue note in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $2 million, waiving competitive bidding and authorizing said revenue note to be sold at a price less than par value by negotiated sale within the limits provided by Title 60 Oklahoma Statute Section 176, authorizing and approving documents, procedures, payments related to the issuance of the revenue note, designating the revenue note as qualified tax exempt obligations as contained in the IRS Code of 1986, providing that the trust indenture shall be subject to the provisions of the revenue note, ratifying a lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract between the City of Yukon and the YMA Authority, and agreeing that the term of the lease shall extend so long as the revenue note remains outstanding and unpaid. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Bradley.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Maxey.
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes.
Gerba.
Yes.
At this time, we'll adjourn as YMA and reconvene as the Yukon City Council. The first item is the consent docket. This item is placed on the agenda so the Yukon City Council, by unanimous consent, can designate those routine items they wish to be approved by one motion. If an item does not meet with the approval of all council members, that item will be heard in regular order. The city manager recommends a motion that will approve A, the minutes of the regular meeting of October the 4th, 2011, B, the payment of material claims in the amount of $431,164.95, C, the 2011 updates to the City of Yukon Emergency Operations Plan, D, the acceptance of the 2011 Community Development Block Grant from the Oklahoma Department of Commerce for water improvements in the amount of $64,567. E, the items on the attached list for the Technology Department is surplus and authorizing their sale, donation, or trade. F, Resolution 2011-12, naming Frosty Peak as the local point of contact for the National Incident Management Systems, activities, and compliance. G, the budget amendment to allow for the transfer of funds from the Stormwater Fund balance in the amount of $100,000 to cover unbudgeted engineering expenses previously approved by the council for the Turtle Creek Master Drainage Plan. And H, setting the date of the next council meeting for November the 1st, 2011, 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the Centennial Building here on 12 South 5th. Do I have a motion?
Actually, I'd like to make a motion separating item G.
I don't think that's be a motion, can't we?
No, he can remove.
He just removes it. Okay. So item G will be removed. We're voting on items A, B, C, D, E, F, and H at this time. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Maxey.
Yes.
Gerba.
Yes.
Bradley.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes. We'll return to item 1G, a budget amendment to allow for the transfer of funds from the Stormwater Fund balance in the amount of $100,000 to cover unbudgeted engineering expenses previously approved by council for the Turtle Creek Master Drainage Plan, Do I have a motion?
No, we have-
Before we have discussion, we have to have a
understand.
motion.
That's what I'm asking you. Do we make the motion and then
Yes.
get second and discuss?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to move to approve item G.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Smith.
When this was an item we had on the agenda just a couple of meetings ago where we approved kind of a last-minute $100,000 for the engineering for this project. We voted to approve it, although I think we were uncomfortable with it. At that time, I don't think we were made aware of where the funds were going to come from. Am I accurate?
No.
Or is my memory failing me?
Well, it was actually from the Stormwater Fund was the motion. And this is simply an accounting cleaning house here that we have to do because it is a separate fund from the general fund.
Okay, so the fact that it was part of the original motion wasn't enough to approve that $100,000 out of that?
This is a budget amendment.
Okay, I see. Very good. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Bradway,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Maxey,
Yes.
Alberts,
Yes.
Gerba.
Yes.
The next item is item 2, and that'd be the reports of boards, commissions, and city officials.
Not at this time, Mayor.
Any others? Item 3 is conduct a hearing to receive comments and discussion on application by Joey Smith Dennis, Whitaker Road, Route 66, asphalt emulsion maintenance to rezone the property located at 1401 Lakeshore Drive, currently zoned as I-1, previously recommended for denial by the Planning Commission. No action will be taken. So, and then we can continue with, this hearing is the opportunity for the City of Yukon residents to make remarks regarding the Planning Commission's recommendation for 1401 Lakeshore Drive. The comments will be accepted only from citizens who are currently living in Yukon. Residents living in the 7309 zip code who do not reside within the city limits will not be able to submit comments. Residents of Yukon may present their remarks at the podium and should adhere to a 3-minute time limit. After comments from the residents have been heard, there will be an opportunity for the City Council to discuss this item and ask questions if needed. When council discussion has concluded, the council will proceed to item 3A on the city agenda. Are there people at this time that would like to address the council about the matter? Come forward to the podium.
I'm Vivian Hausch from 1169 Church Street. Today I picked up a comprehensive plan for Yukon, Oklahoma. Nowhere in the city limits of Yukon is there any high industrial zoning. The only thing there is low industrial zoning. Therefore, it should be denied because there's no place in here who has high industrial. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
There actually has been. Your high school sits on it right now.
82.
Roger.
Mr. Albert and Councils, I'm Roger Everett. I represent Mr. Smith and Mr. Whitaker. Been at the Planning Commission when we brought this up. Number one, for the benefit of council, what Mr. Smith is proposing to do is have an asphalt emulsification. That means that a tanker truck would arrive at his facility with asphalt crude. It would be unloaded, piped into a 30,000-gallon tank that's located inside the metal building. Thereupon, added to that is ingredients of soapy type water to emulsify it. I don't know if the Planning Commission understood exactly what was involved, and after talking with city staff, currently this is zoned light industrial, and one thing that the council might do would be to send it back to the Planning Commission to see if we can iron out and make resolution of some of these issues. My client's willing to do quite a bit that he wouldn't have to do otherwise. So that would be one option the council could do, would be to send it back to the Planning Commission. I'm kind of asking the council to do that and let us visit more with city staff and see what we can come up with there. If the council's not inclined to do that, I've also got Mark Hendrickson here as co-counsel, and Mark would want to make a few remarks to the council on this. But currently, I think that would be a fairly innocuous use of the property. It's not, you know, some open deal of materials that are outside that are, you know, having smells or something. It would all be contained inside that tank, and there wouldn't be a lot of traffic generated by this. We're not talking that semis are pulling in every day. This would be one tank truck bringing the stuff in, and then him adding his stuff, and then it actually going out on smaller, like 1-2 ton trucks. And it's not any type of some hazardous type material, and DEQ doesn't have any problems. But I would kind of suggest if it's the council's would be to maybe refer us back to the Planning Commission to see what we can do with city staff and folks on this. Because what Mr. Smith would be willing to do would be to spend quite a bit of money and
30 seconds.
that's fine.
I didn't mean to stop you, but.
That's
I actually have a question for Roger, if that's all right. After remarks, okay.
Mark, do you want to go ahead and, if you have comments, get them out of the way, and then let the other, you have to approach the podium.
Mayor, all of my comments would be about why you should
Sir,
grant the application.
Could you identify yourself? for
I'm
me,
Mark
please?
Henriksen. I'm a lawyer from Oklahoma City, and I represent the applicants. All of my comments would be about this. Mr. Everett requested that it be remanded and would ask you all to consider that. I'll make my comments whenever you direct me to.
Well, that's up to you, but we're going to have this discussion period, and after the discussion period, then we'll proceed to where we'll vote. So whether it's goes back or not, I think it's up to you, but I think if you're going to make a comment, it probably would be most appropriate to make it now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Mr. Smith desires to, and Mr. Whitaker desire to have a very limited alteration of the use of their property from what they have been doing for years. In fact, this particular use was performed by Mr. Smith's parents on this property until it was discontinued. Mr. Everett, and I recognize the time limitations, so I'm not going to repeat what he said, but it is a bringing in relatively small trucks, adding some stuff to it, and creating inexpensive road material, which is in high demand by counties and cities throughout Oklahoma. This has the potential in the short run, within the next 12 to 18 months, of providing 30 to 40 fairly good jobs for this area, which I would think would be one of the factors that this city council would want to consider. In reviewing this from a legal point of view, I looked at the report of Mr. Hort, and it points out that the master plan said, contemplated that this light industrial property would be surrounded by intensive commercial use. And then the next sentence of his presentation to the Planning Commission is that among the reasons now that it ought not be approved is because of the residential development to the south. Now that creates a bit of a catch-22, that for good zoning purposes, you ought not historically have put R1 residential next to light industrial. There ought to have been layers of land use separating my client's pre-existing industrial use, and you should not have allowed it to abut what is now a nice and expensive residential area. I understand that, but it seems to me that having made what would appear to be a zoning decision that runs contrary to typical standards of having layers of use intensity between my client and the people who came after him now creates an issue of fairness. And I guess the first proposition is he ought to be able to do what he wants to as long as he does not create a nuisance for his neighbors. Mr. Smith is willing to spend a lot of money in landscaping, in site proofing. He's even willing to do what I can't imagine that he's willing to agree to. He's willing at his expense to provide the labor and material to widen the access road to his property. That's not something you could vote to do tonight, and that's another reason why we think it ought to be remanded to see if we could enter into some sort of
30 seconds.
Contractual agreement with the city of Yukon, some sort of conditional use permit. But in all fairness, you need to look at the history of your zoning action in this case, because your master plan says that this property should be surrounded by high-intensity commercial, and in fact, your predecessors in office abutted R1 next to a light industrial, creating this room full of people tonight. And you're going to have to resolve what your predecessors have done, which create this, but that does not change the fact that Mr. Smith and Mr. Whitaker still have a fundamental right to use their property, and we submit the evidence shows there's not going to be any nuisance caused for their neighbors.
Thank you. Name and address.
My name is,
You
sorry.
can pull it down.
Okay, my name is Becky McMahon, and I live at 1205 Twilight Terrace. My property actually backs up to the old Route 66, so they are 15 yards behind my house. If it's gonna create 40 or 50 jobs, where are they gonna park? Because that property is not big enough for the equipment that they have now. Another is, the key word is their license expired. They should have kept up with it in the first place if they didn't want residential people to move all the way around them. And about their landscaping, my 7-year-old daughter can do a better job than that. And they just did it
Okay, now
within
wait,
the
wait,
last
whoa,
week.
whoa, listen, listen, we're gonna have a civil discussion. I understand, all of you all are very passionate here. I understand that the room is full, so the city can't see, but the room is full. But we're gonna have, you are welcome to make any comments that you want to, but let's not be overcritical. Let's state the facts about why it should or shouldn't be here and go forward. Fair enough?
Fair.
Okay.
They did
And I'm
their
not saying that your
lands-
7-year-old is not a great landscaper, okay? Okay.
And, okay, to their landscaping, they just mowed their yard 2 days ago. And it's been out of control for months. If they want to widen the road, that's going to widen the road into closer to people's backyards. So why should we have to widen the road for trucks that they say that they're not going to take down Lakefront Road anyway? And they also said that they're not going to drive around the pond. If they don't go down Lakefront Road or around the pond, they have to cut through the library or through the Circle K parking lot to get to their property, which they have done because I have seen it. That's pretty much all I have.
Thank you.
Julie Owens, 201 Sunrise Drive. First of all, I want to start by saying I do not think that it should go back to the commission board or planning commission or whatever. They had their opportunity that night. They didn't obviously prove their case. It was denied. So why should they get that chance again? Second, since that night that we were all here and had that meeting, they've been more active than what they were ever before. And with the big trucks going down Lakeshore Road like they promised that they wouldn't. They've been very loud. There was a whole entire week that I would get home after midnight, I was doing some work, and I would get home late, and they would have some kind of, I don't know if it's anyway, it was some loud noise going after midnight. About the third or fourth time, I ended up calling the police. They came out, did surveillance for a little while, and ended up going over there and shutting it all down. What it was, I don't know, but they said we wouldn't have a problem with noise pollution. Obviously, it was a problem. I mean, they were working past midnight. For what? That's all, I think.
My name is Bob Harper. My wife operates a Old Route 66 vegetable farm, which is
What's your address? What's your address, sir?
1817 Lakeshore Drive
Thank you, sir.
and 1813 Lakeshore Drive.
Thank you.
And I'm going to say again, I have no axe to grind against business, period. And my comment is this, and I don't know where Matt Wheatley is. I asked where he was at the last meeting, and the reason for that is pertinent. And the pertinence is his mother has a tract of ground that is on the point there, right in front of the Circle K, and it's zoned commercial. And I had a realtor by the name of Debbie Cook go approach her, Mrs. Wheatley, about that tract of ground. I hired an attorney, not an attorney, but a engineer to do research on that piece of property. And I was told, I learned 2 or 3 things. This cost me about $2,400. That's not an issue. I turned all the engineering over to Mr. Wheatley, and I was hoping he would be here with that engineering because I turned it all over to him. What I learned at that point in time is that little creek that runs down from your pond up there, or whoever's pond that is by the library, down towards that piece of property. As it goes through that property is waters of the United States, and you have to have a Form 401 or I'm not sure whether it's 401 or 404 to turn a shovel of dirt there. I also learned from this engineer, in the engineering, the letters, everything is with Mr. Wheatley, that I could not conduct a real estate office there unless I did a Form 1 environmental test. Maybe it's not Form 1, but anyway, and if that turned up anything at all, then there'd have to be a Series 2 environmental test, which goes down to groundwater and everything else. I don't begrudge these folks the opportunity to do business. What I think I understand is that there's been some environmental activity around that property, on the Wheatley property previously, and I wish Matt Wheatley would address that. Obviously, he's not, I can't address that for him. All I care about is I've got a nice vegetable farm down there. I'm not certified organic because I can't be. There's too many residences around me. But I am concerned about contamination of water. I'm concerned about, ground contamination because we do soil testing, we do water testing. I have 2 wells down there.
30 seconds, sir. You
I
have
didn't
30,
hear you.
you have 30 seconds left.
All right, well, and I thank you for your time.
No,
And
you-
again, I'm not, if I've got to put in a real estate office, if I've got to have environmental testing, how come these guys don't? Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Go right ahead. My name's Bob Wheeler. I live at 1104 Landmark Drive. This last week, there were 3 trucks that went right down Landmark Drive and went into this place. There's clearly a sign saying right there, no through truck traffic. They haven't even started yet. And by the way, how much asphalt can you haul on a 1-ton truck or a 2-ton truck? Not very much. Not very much. I just don't want that in my neighborhood. I moved to Yukon because it was a nice, quiet place. And you're fixing to disturb the whole place. I would ask you, do not approve this. Thank you.
My name is Cynthia Kidd. I live at 1118 McConnell Drive. And my concerns have more to do with the pollution and the risk that it has to our children. Children with asthma, children that are playing, children that are going to the pond, the libraries there. How about the basketball courts? There's an awful lot of child traffic in that area. You add the trucks to that, whether they go out on 39th or stay back along that street, it's just not acceptable. The noise that's going to come from that plant, not acceptable. There are so many things about that that tell me that it is not acceptable for business. I'm a claims adjuster, and I handle multiple claims over pollution, over asphalt plants and asphalt type products. And I don't want it in my neighborhood. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Larry Slaughter, 313 Amanda Drive. The thing that concerns me is there's a lot of young children that ride their bicycles, a lot of families, young children, parents behind or whatever, but they're down the sidewalks what they can, then on the edge of the street. These big tracks, a lot of them are 3 tandem, not 1 ton, not 2 ton dump trucks. These are 3 tandems on their back end. Another thing is in reference to the groundskeeping and everything. I've lived there on Amanda Drive for 6 years now, and at least 3 to 4 times they have planted small evergreen bushes in the front, and they have died every year. Now, there's something wrong with that soil. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Corey Wilkins. I live at 308 Eastview Drive. And I'm not going to go all into the codes that they're in violations of now. I'm going to let the city handle that, and I think that they will and should. I'm going to state some codes that they're asking to be approved for. Section 201.3 of the City Municipal Code states that the boundaries of a zoning district shall extend to the center line of any abutting streets regardless of the legal description used to establish the district. Having said that, Section 604.1 under the I-2 for heavy industrial districts, subsection C states that no storage, manufacture, or assembly of goods shall be conducted out of a building unless the nearest point of said activity is more than 300 feet from the boundary of any zoning district, not just the residential, any zoning district. That means the commercial ones on the side, 300 feet in, the nearest point. That lot does not meet that size requirement. Why should we give them a special circumstance for that? They don't meet it on any boundary. To say that it's not fair to not consider that, as an I-1, that's not a requirement. It doesn't say anything about the size requirement. To be an I-2, now that's taking in the size of their lot. It is fair to say, no, you're not big enough. We're not going to approve you. You don't meet the city code. We're not going to alter the code for one person. What they're doing for their one business where they may hire 30 to 40 employees affects hundreds of residents. Why should we change our codes for one person against hundreds of residences? Section 604.1 subsection 2 also says that industrial districts are designed to protect residences by separating them from manufacturing activities. The I-2 heavy industrial is to provide a location for industries which may, by their nature, cause some nuisance. Okay, well, as a residential zone, it says you're supposed to protect us from nuisances such as an I-2. Now, on I-1, it doesn't really state that, but to become an I-2, it surely does state that very clear, that you're supposed to protect us from any nuisance from that. That's pretty much all that I have. I mean, I could go into the codes that they're in violation of now, of not having a screening fence up on the east side, and their landscaping, and the water tanks that we have, and we do have photos of that too, or the storage tanks that are out there now that are clearly visible from the road that should not be there, because it really should be for only daily use. But I think you should definitely consider the size of their lot, protecting us residences from the nuisance, as maybe your main factor legally to tell them no.
Thank you. At this point, I would like to ask if you're going to approach and discuss with the council, if you would try to address an item that's not been addressed. We've talked about the traffic, the pollution, their landscaping, those type of things. We appreciate all those comments, but there's no reason to repeat those. So if you would go ahead.
Jill Schuler, 1177 Plaza Drive, and I know you just addressed all the nuisance and everything, but I'm coming to you today because, sorry, I'm nervous, but I'm, besides the rest of our community that's affected by this, I'm affected because I live right behind them, and I have dealt with noise. I've dealt with the smell air where I can't even open my windows to enjoy the fresh air. Even though we've had our droughts here in Oklahoma, there's days where, you know, you just want to open your windows. And it affects me on that part. In the evening, with the increased activities, due to the fact that I don't know what they're doing, it has woken me up. But I wanted to come and talk to you about it just so that, besides our community, I'm greatly affected because my house is right behind them. and I'm just bothered by that. Thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else about a topic that we've not discussed?
Stan Brooks, I live at 1100 Landmark Drive. It's right on the corner of Landmark and Yukon Boulevard now. If you zone that now, there's other property to the north of that that's vacant with some trees and stuff on it. Then you're gonna have to probably zone that someday as industrial or something, to get in that too. Then what else can go in there? I understand industrial, your high industrial anything can go in there basically. There's land over on 10th Street by DeLisi. There's land over on Reno and stuff. It's over there. I used to live I had a business over in that area, and there's an asphalt plant over there. I was about a half a mile from it, and when the wind was in the right direction, which we lived, the business was west of that. If the wind was right, we got that smell all the time. They had a truck the other day that came at about 10 after 6, tried to turn and go down Landmark Drive. We were out there on the corner talking, and there's some traffic there. He was parked. We went to pointing at the sign that says no through trucks. He started that way, and we kept motioning for him, so he finally went down the street, went down to the schoolhouse, looped through the school parking lot, and come back around. And why he was coming from the north going south to go around that way. If he's up that way, he could have went down the other way and got over to his plant anyway. That's all I have.
Thank you.
My name is Don McCool. I reside at 308 Marketplace, Village at Landmark. One thing that hasn't been discussed is our property values. Should this place go heavy industrial? Now, I hail from the state of Michigan. I know what industry does to neighborhoods. We moved to Oklahoma years ago, and we moved to Yukon primarily because it was a small community, not an industrial community. The area I live in is a homeowners association. There will eventually be 39 homes in there, we thought. We have 22 existing homes now. We have 2 show houses built. Not me, I'm not a builder, I just live there. We have 2 other homes in construction. During the weekend, people come through our community looking for homes. And since the last meeting with the Planning Commission, people have come in and look at some of those homes in there that are interested in moving into our community, have approached me and asked about this plan on 36th Street there. And I won't lie to them, I tell them exactly what it is. And to my knowledge, we have had 2 people now that were interested in coming into our community and having a home that they could retire into, that said, no, we don't wish to live in this community or near this until this thing is settled. So it will decrease our property values, and I would say from a minimum of 25% upwards. Some of us sold our homes, we're up in age, we're in our 70s, some of us are in our 80s. This was going to be our place to live for the rest of our lives. Some of us have COPD, or our wives, or our loved ones. We don't need a asphalt plant this close to the residential area. We respectfully request that the council reject this change. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
My name is Gus Hall. I live at 1173 Church Street in Village at Landmark. Some things I don't think have been addressed is the fact that the surrounding area there, the library, the senior citizen center, we have 2 or 3 churches that have occupied some property that's been vacant a long time, so the area is really beginning to pick up. And I don't know why anybody would want to put an asphalt plant right in the middle of it. We got a brand-new fire station that as you come west from Oklahoma City, you can see it for half a mile or more. And it really is pretty to look at it from that distance. Are you going to have an asphalt plant right in the middle of everything when now it's beginning to pick up with some good-looking facilities there? They've just finished a new church down the road, and all this is within a block or two or three. So my recommendation to you is to turn it down. Thank you.
You gave me 30 seconds. Do I have 10 seconds left?
I don't think so. And we understand, if someone else has something that we've not talked about, I think it's safe to say that the majority of you all are here tonight and do not want this thing to be passed. I think, is anyone else here that wants to speak in favor of it? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd like to call the question, please.
Okay. Question's been called. We vote on that?
There needs to be a motion before the question is called. If you want to close this hearing at this time, then that would be the appropriate thing to do.
Okay.
Go on to item 3A.
Okay.
And then entertain a motion.
Then
Once the motion's been.
At this time, we'll close the discussion and we'll move to item 3A. Item 3A is consider the recommendation of the Planning Commission to deny the application for zoning of 1401 Lakeshore Drive.
I'd like to make a motion to uphold the planning commission recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion?
I actually do have a couple of things, Mayor. I might say that in this case, I will speak for the entire council. We as a council are not responsible for what was previously ignored by councils in earlier times. I have no ill will against Mr. Smith trying to open his business, reopen, I should say. My personal feeling is that just because he was pre-existing at that location, if anyone's done their homework, we know that it wasn't zoned properly for the operation even at that time. That shouldn't mean that there are grounds for us to rezone just based on the fact that previous administrations have ignored what was going on. The root of the issue is the zoning, not whether or not he should be able to reopen his business. And my question for Roger was, and this, I don't know if he can even answer this question at this point, but in referring it back to the Planning Commission, would that go back based on reclassifying that business to light industrial? Because it seems pretty obvious to me that the operation, that type of business, would certainly require heavy industrial zoning.
Roger, do you want to answer that? You need to come back to the podium.
As far as what this would require to rezone, I'm not sure. And I did have a question about whether it would fit in light industrial based upon what's actually taking place. The asphalt crude being placed in a tank and mixed with other ingredients, basically kind of soapy water, and then leaving. I do have some questions about that. And that was maybe one other reason to let it go back and let us discuss some more with city staff on this thing.
Let me ask you a question. Do you believe that from a legal standpoint, do you believe that the business that your client plans to put there, that it's zoned properly currently?
Well, I'm unsure legally about that. Like I say, the taking of the asphalt crude, it's containerized, then it's mixed with emulsification and soapy type water and stuff. I'm not sure. I looked at that, and it looks to me like maybe there's possible two ways that could go. And when this started, you know, we talked with city staff, and their recommendation was to rezone.
And I guess the reason for my question is I understand that no one here wants this thing sent back to the planning commission, but I think that the next step past this is potentially litigation, because there are two attorneys here, which would be very costly to the city, and I know that no one here wants us to spend a great deal of money. So my question would be, if it were to go back to the planning commission, and there was some sort of a discussion, I mean, is there a question in your mind where ultimately you might say that this is not the proper fit? But if you are passionate about your position, then we might as well go forward, and so that's what
Right, and like I say, I'm a little bit unsure. It, in some ways, seems like it might fit light industrial, but then there's another part that says, well, it could go heavy industrial, and I think, the one thing that concerned the planning commission is, once it is zoned heavy industrial, and if Mr. Smith was to sell that property, there could be a variety of businesses come in there. And that was one thing that we did not discuss with city staff about what would happen, and maybe give us that opportunity to do that.
If I might, yes. Sure. I did a little research, and I tried to find another operation similar to what Mr. Smith would like to open in that location. I was unable to find anything that was exactly like it, but I will say this: there have been plants in Oklahoma City that are similar, and every one that I was able to locate, and there were 3 that I was able to locate that were similar, were all heavy industrial zoned properties. I assume, in my ignorance, that's because that type of a business would require a heavy industrial zoning in order to meet requirements.
And my question, and this is not, when people think of asphalt, we're thinking of a mix of aggregate, kind of a hot tarry type substance. It's put down hot and then rolled. This is actually the liquid. It's not any aggregate, anything else. It's just in a liquid form, and then the crude comes in kind of a hot liquid form. It gets mixed in the tank with this other stuff, and then it leaves. It's not, dump trucks full of hot asphalt that are driving down the road, leaving rocks and stuff. It's just a liquid.
I understand that. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Everett? Okay. Where are we at?
We have a motion and a second.
In a second. All right. Any other discussion?
Call a vote.
I would. No. Now do we vote on whether we vote then? When
No,
the
what
question?
that does is it ends discussion, and you need to have a roll call vote on the motion that's on the floor.
And we have the 3 options to
No, the motion on the floor is to accept
uphold the planning
the
commission's
recommendation of the planning commission.
Got it.
Can I talk to Mr. Maxey to ask him to withdraw his?
Certainly.
I sure will. You got
I just
30
have-
seconds.
Okay. Here's my, and I don't know, Mr. Sigler, whether you can talk about this or not. The thing that, as an attorney, that I'm concerned about is any potential litigation in the future, and anything that we could do to avoid the litigation. I understand these people are concerned, and I listen, and I understand what they're saying. But if this is going to go forward, and we're going to end up over in the district court in Canadian County, if we send it back to the planning commission and potentially, is it possible, I don't know, that maybe we could convince them that this is not the right fit for the community?
Convince who?
The planning commission could convince Roger and his client that it's not the proper thing for the community.
You certainly have before you, one of the options is to send it back to the planning commission for further study. What the planning commission might do at a subsequent meeting, nobody really knows. And you wouldn't really be able to dictate.
And I'd just like to have a little discussion with the council about that.
Here's the deal on that. If they fit the zoning now, then they need to apply, or if they feel like they fit the zoning now, they need to apply for a permit.
And that actually is taking place, and that's why we're discussing this now.
And if that permit is, or the application's made, the permit's denied, then they have their recourse. This is purely and simply whether or not this piece of property should be zoned I-2, regardless of the current use regardless of the proposed use.
Okay.
Is there a proper zoning for this piece of property to be placed into the heavy industrial district?
And in applying, as I understand it, Mr. Alberts, in this business having applied, that's what's taken us to this point, because it did not, the application for permit did not fit within the zoning that property currently carries.
No other comments, anyone else? Call the roll.
Gerba,
Yes.
Maxey,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Alberts,
Yes.
Bradway.
Yes.
The next item we have is item number 4, consider approving an agreement for the services between the City of Yukon and the Yukon Chamber of Commerce for the period beginning July the 1st, 2011 through June the 30th, 2012 at a cost of $2,500 per month.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sir, we're in the middle of a meeting. We'd be glad to discuss with you when it's over. You can read the agenda and see what we voted on. I think that would answer your question. If someone would share with this gentleman the agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yes.
Mr. Bradway.
We talked about this last time and considered approving agreement services for $30,000 a year, the Yukon Chamber of Commerce.
Quiet in the chambers, please.
We discussed giving the Yukon Chamber of Commerce $30,000 a year, taxpayer money. The contract was to go from July 1, 2011 through June 30th, 2012. That's $2,500 a month. And this is October. We paid those four months. We've done so without a contract.
We have not paid to this point. We are awaiting approval of this contract to make the
But
full
there
payment.
has been no money paid.
No money paid.
That's what I want to know.
Anything else? Any other?
Yes, this funding was actually approved in our budget that we voted on in, I guess it was June? Mr.
Yes,
Bonham, is that right?
first meeting of June.
So these funds have already actually been approved, and that's all I have.
Is there public discussion, or is it just amongst you?
Do you have, regarding the chamber?
Well, the Chamber of Commerce, yes, that's correct.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, I think whoever submitted the idea that I saw in the newspaper, that the Chamber of Commerce budget should be contingent upon what business they bring in the community, is a genius. I tried for 4 months last year to address the Chamber of Commerce to bring a project in here that was graced by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I could not get a response. I could not get a response from the previous city manager. When I got to the current city manager, I was told, well, that's not a branch of government. You should have been talking to us instead of them. I don't know how to skin the cat here. I don't know where the division is. But if they're out here to bring business into the community, well, let's bring business into the community. I can explain that there's a company called Hardesty Cheese that wanted to come in here and bring their business. And they attempted to go, they attended a meeting of the Chamber of Commerce, which happened over at Yukon's Best Feeds at the time. It went flat, you know, and if you pay for just coming to work and going home, that's what you're going to get. If you pay for results, that's exactly what you're going to get. It's results. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
I had a couple more items along that issue. I was looking at the agreement itself on number 4, back here in the back, and let's see, it gets down to the work plan. They talked about the work plan, and I looked at it, I made some notes. They said Business and Economic Development Division, that's a form of the Chamber of Commerce. My question was, how many actually businesses were specifically brought to Yukon by the Chamber of Commerce? That was A. B, specifically name the businesses' retention or expansion in Yukon. Specification, number of businesses that have expanded through economic development agreements. Specifically, how many successful retail events have been completed in the last year if we could name some of those. Maybe that information wouldn't be available tonight, but I'd like to see it brought to the council. That's under economic development. You got economic development and tourism. They listed the people that they worked with was Chisholm Trail, Czech Festival, Freedom Fest. Well, Freedom Fest is totally a city operation. Czech Festival, they have committees that, and the city works some with that, but that's another committee that is done. Chisholm Trail, that's another event that is done by other folks. I don't think that the chamber has a specific seat on those committees or in those organizations. If they do, I'd like to hear about it. Of course, then there's the Government Affairs Group. That's legislative breakfast once a month. But most of these events that they have, also on their fundraising, those events that they ask for sponsors and for money to be contributed, and people take turns out of just wanting to do it and be helpful. I understand that. But that's, and that's part of their operation. But, you know, we're paying a lot of money out, taxpayer money, to really fund a group that has not, I think, a proven trail of bringing business into Yukon as much as the people that have really developed it. And like I told Mr. Smith earlier, and I think he even agreed with me, you know, put them on commission. If you're in business, and the ones that really perform, make the most money, are people on commission. They make more money than standard, I got one thumbs up, that make more money. It's a proven fact. It's kind of tough to be on commission because you wonder where your next customer's coming from. But when you have that, then your big fear is that you make too much money and people get jealous of you and want to take your money away from you. So that puts you in a different position when you're working those commissions. But I do believe that there's a better way of doing this than just giving a donation of $30,000. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other discussion?
Yes, actually, I might add a couple of things, and Bob, you're right, there isn't a lot that we agree on, but that is one item I believe that we do agree on, that I think that an incentive-based relationship with the city is something that will be in the future for the Chamber of Commerce, and I do believe that that's actually going to benefit the chamber more than it's going to hamstring the chamber. And you mentioned a couple of specific events, and I'll just mention one that, because we're coming into that season, we have a Shop Yukon program through the chamber. I say we, the chamber has a Shop Yukon program that's in its third year this year. In the first year, the results monitored through the businesses that are participating within the program generated $600,000 worth of revenue the first, or income, I should say, the first year. Last year was in excess of $800,000, I believe, and we have a goal this year. The chamber has a goal of over $1 million of additional business brought into Yukon for that specific event. So there are, if you haven't been a part of it, it's probably hard to track, and I believe that that the chamber and the city are going to do a much better job of tracking the benefits that organization actually does bring to the city. And it's not, in my eyes, a donation to the chamber. It's no different than entering into a contract for services rendered for any other organization within the city. If the organization provides benefits to the city that are justifiable in the monies that are transferred between the city and that organization, then that's a positive thing, not a negative thing. And I think that when we talk about, as Mr. Bradway mentioned, a commission basis, you can look at it as a commission, but we will, and I'm speaking for myself, I will, as a member of this council and having a business in town, I will do the best that I can over the next couple of years to help monitor the benefits that the chamber brings to the city as far as economic development, and it's much more positive than the picture that's being painted here this evening. So,
call the roll, please.
Alberts.
Yes.
Gerba.
Yes.
Bradway.
No.
Smith.
yes.
Maxey.
Yes.
Item 5 is consider approval consider and approve resolution number 2011-11, a resolution approving the incurrence of indebtedness by the Yukon Municipal Authority, issuing its 2011 revenue note in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $2 million, waiving competitive bidding, and authorizing said revenue note to be sold at a price less than par value by a negotiated sale within the limits provided by Title 60 Oklahoma Statute Section 176, authorizing and approving a sale tax agreement providing security to the revenue note, designating the revenue note as qualified tax exempt obligations under the IRS Code 1986, providing that the trust indenture shall be subject to the provisions of the revenue note ratification of lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract between the city and the authority, and agreeing that the term of the lease shall extend to as long as the revenue note remains unpaid, and authorization of the documents and procedures relating to the issuance of the revenue note. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Smith.
Yes.
Bradway.
Yes.
Maxey.
Yes.
Gerba.
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes. Item 6 is consider and approve the ordinance number 1270, an ordinance amending section 2-137B of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Yukon by determining that certain obligations incurred, including the Yukon Municipal Authority 2011 revenue note and an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $2 million, do not exceed debt limitations, repealing all conflicting ordinance provisions, and declaring an emergency. And I believe that ordinance needs to be read. Would you read that, Mr. Sigler?
Yes, sir, I will. The Code of Ordinances of the City of Yukon is hereby amended by amending the existing language of Section 2-137B, which new Section 2-137B is set out in its entirety below, to wit, B. The following bonds and indebtednesses are conclusively determined to be within and not to exceed the limitations of Section 2-137A, or any debt limitations of the Code of Ordinances or the Charter of the City, and any conflicting provisions of the Code of Ordinances of the City are modified to the extent necessary to fully validate the following. 1. Yukon Municipal Authority Sales Tax and Utility System Revenue Bonds, Series 2005A, in the aggregate principal amount of $3,080,000. 2. Yukon Municipal Authority Sales Tax and Utility System Revenue Refunding Bonds, Series 2005B, in the aggregate principal amount of $11,180,000. 3. Yukon Municipal Authority Sales Tax and Utility System Revenue Bonds, Series 2007, in the aggregate amount of $7,575,000. 4. Yukon Municipal Authority Sales Tax and Utility System Revenue Refunding Bonds, Series 2010, in the aggregate principal amount of $4,430,000. 5. Yukon Municipal Authority 2010 Revenue Note in the aggregate principal amount of $2 million. 6. Yukon Municipal Authority Sales Tax and Utility System Revenue Bonds, Series 2011, in the aggregate principal amount of $7,500,000. 7. Yukon Municipal Authority 2011 Revenue Note in the aggregate principal amount of $2 million. All provisions of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Yukon which are inconsistent with the foregoing are hereby repealed to the extent of such conflict, it being intended that the foregoing ordinance shall supersede and modify any conflicting provisions contained in the Code of Ordinances of the City of Yukon. Section 3, Emergency. Whereas it is necessary for the immediate preservation of peace, health, and safety of the citizens and residents of the City of Yukon, Oklahoma, that the foregoing ordinance be enacted and that the provisions of this ordinance become immediately effective, an emergency is hereby declared to exist, and this ordinance shall be in full force and effect immediately from and after its passage and approval as provided by law.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
I always have that uncontrollable urge to ask him to read it again.
Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Gerba.
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Maxey.
Yes.
Bradway.
Yes.
Next item is item 6A, consider and approve the emergency clause of ordinance 1270.
Move the emergency.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Maxey.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Gerba.
Yes.
Bradway.
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes. Item 7 is consider approving change order number 2 for the construction of the new Yukon Fire Station in an amount decreasing the contract sum by $15,792.58. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Is that un-American to decrease a contract like that?
I think we're gonna do some more.
Never seen that done.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Alberts.
Yes.
Bradway.
Yes.
Gerba.
Yes.
Maxey.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Item 8 is consider approving a request for a conditional use permit for a mobile home located at 5360 Cimarron Road by Joshua and Ad Woodley and Mark Prezik?
Perzak.
I was going to say that's not Prezik. Perzak.
So moved.
Is it Prezik?
Breezy.
That's what I thought. Okay, I thought that was Prezik. Yay. Recommended by the Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Bradway.
Yes.
Maxey.
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Gerba.
Yes.
Item 9 is consider approving an expenditure of funds for the purpose of reconfiguring City Hall offices in amount anticipated to be $62,900 with cash expenditures for the outsourcing competitive bid items not to exceed $40,000 of the above total to be funded from the Capital Improvement Fund.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes. Question. We're reconfiguring the offices. Okay? Every time I go by City Hall, I see that big plastic sheet up on top. Looks like a lid on a Coke can. And is any of this money gonna go towards fixing that leak?
Not any of this money, but if you'll remember, we did budget $25,000 to put I'm gonna call it a fix, over the top of which is what has been recommended. Robbie's looked at it. We've had structural engineers come and look at it, and we do have money in our budget too.
Why aren't we fixing the roof before we configure the offices? Because we configure the offices and then fix the roof.
We
I mean,
first of all got to find somebody that really wants to help us do it.
Can't get
That
us
has been a difficult task.
finding a contractor to do it?
Yep. Mike has even brought a contractor over, and we are
Desperate.
we're having trouble finding somebody that's willing to tackle it.
Why, just because of the difficulty of fixing that one, the light? Generally where you have those skylights, that's the worst part of it.
And the reconfiguration that we're talking about on this is not anywhere close to the lobby.
So it won't bother you at all? Okay.
But we do have to get it fixed, and we do have money budgeted
Okay.
for that purpose.
Call the question.
Call the question?
Well, yeah, go ahead. Whatever.
Call the roll.
Call the roll.
Smith.
Yes.
Gerba.
Yes.
Maxey.
Yes.
Bradway.
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes. Item 10 is the city manager's report information only.
I'm going to be brief as we go through this. Update of the fire station construction project. Things are moving along very well. We are still about 3 weeks out from having the windows delivered. That will signal the dry-in phase being completed. The construction is still going very well. We're still on target to open in April, if not before. Chief Jones and I went down last week, did a walkthrough with Conrad. I'm very pleased with the quality of the construction that we're receiving to this point, and look forward to occupying the building, as I know all of our fire service employees are looking to do that. We are going to have a building that has been vacant out on Garth Brooks. The old Blockbuster video building has been vacant for some time. That is going to be occupied by Mathis Brothers in a mattress outlet store. Will be located in that building. We'll be sending out notification of that ribbon cutting here pretty soon. Also on October the 28th, the News 9 road trip will be coming to Yukon on that Friday. They will be here at 8 o'clock in the morning to go to the Chamber of Commerce coffee. We're trying to find a spot that'll be big enough for that day, but we anticipate that shouldn't be much of a problem. They will spend the day they'll be here throughout the entire day, and the final activity will be a tailgate party preceding the Choctaw football game. So they will be around town, and you can be watching for us on television throughout the newscasts later throughout the day.
Great.
I'll be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Any questions? Item 11 is new business. No new business. 12 is council discussion. Mr. Maxon.
I don't even need 30 seconds. I have nothing.
Mr. Smith.
No comments.
Mr. Gerba.
I'm good, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Bradway.
Let's go home.
With no other business standing before this council tonight, we are adjourned.